Marasara! I am so happy you're here. You're listening to the My Felt Story podcast, your place for Torah stories. From Avraham Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu, we learn how to love and serve Hashem and how to be kind to our fellow friends. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. This is the story of how the Jewish people left Mitzrayim. Do you remember when Hashem took Avraham to Eretz Canaan and told him, "I will give this beautiful land to your descendants"? Hashem also told Avraham, "Your children will be strangers in a land that's not theirs, and they will be slaves for many years, but in the end, they will go free with great wealth." When Avraham heard that, he felt very, very sad and worried for his grandchildren. He didn't want them to suffer and be in pain. But Avraham realized that sometimes we need to go through hard times to grow and become stronger. There was a famine in the land of Eretz Canaan. A famine is a time when no food grows and people can get very hungry. Yaakov Avinu, who was Avraham's grandson, together with his whole family, went to Mitzrayim to buy food. And do you know who they found in Mitzrayim? They found their brother Yosef. He was second to the king of Mitzrayim, and he was helping the whole country have enough food during the famine. When Yosef saw his family, he was so happy. He missed them after so many years of not seeing them. He invited them to come live next to him in Mitzrayim. When the king of Mitzrayim saw how special Yosef's family was, he wanted to give them the best land in the whole country. Paro gave Yosef and his family the land of Goshen. Goshen was a beautiful place with lots of green grass, perfect for their animals to eat and live happily. Yaakov's children and all their families were also happy in Goshen. They had everything they needed. There were also places for learning Torah, and the children of Yaakov spent much of their time serving Hashem. There was peace and prosperity for them in Mitzrayim. Their families grew, and also their possessions. It was a very good time for the children of Yaakov. When a new king started to rule the land of Mitzrayim, he noticed how strong and healthy the families of Yaakov were. He saw how many children they were having. The king of Mitzrayim was worried. What if the Jewish nation gets so strong and so mighty that they overpower me? Paro and his advisors thought of a plan to try to weaken the Jewish people. He invited all the Egyptian people to work on a project to fix the storage cities of Pithom and Ramses. The Jewish people were happy to help. They wanted to prove to Paro and all the Egyptians that they were loyal and helpful, so they came and worked extra hard. Not all the Jews went, though. Shevet Levi was busy learning Torah and serving Hashem. They didn't have time to get involved with Paro's project. After some time, Paro changed the plan. He said that now the Jewish people had to work. It was no longer a choice. The Egyptians kept a record of how much work each person did and didn't let them go home until they produced that amount of work each day. The Jewish people worked so hard. Every day they would go and work, making heavy bricks and carrying them on their backs and then using all their strength to build. Sometimes they didn't go home because they finished their work so late. They would sleep next to their work, and when they woke up, they would continue working. The frustrating part was that Pithom and Ramses was located on soft, muddy sand and kept sinking. So, no matter how hard they worked to build, it always sunk and needed to be rebuilt the next day. The Jewish people had lost their freedom. They no longer were able to spend their time as they wanted. They had to work for Paro and do what the Egyptian taskmasters said. And that's how the Jewish people became slaves to Paro. Even though Paro's goal was to weaken the Jewish people, the more he made them work, the more Jewish babies were born. His plans were not working. Paro was especially worried when his astrologers told him about a baby boy that would be born and would redeem the Jewish people. "Oh no," Paro cried out. "I don't want my Jewish slaves to leave. I like them working for me." Paro called the Jewish midwives, Yocheved and Miriam, to come to his palace. Yocheved and Miriam stood before Paro. "I have decided that I want you to stop taking care of the newborn Jewish baby boys." Yocheved and Miriam were not afraid of King Paro. Do you think they listened to him? Of course not. They loved Hashem and all the little babies that were born. They continued to look after all the newborn babies. When a new baby was born, they wrapped them in a warm blanket and made sure they were comfortable. They gave the mummies food and warm slippers so they could rest. Miriam and Yocheved took such good care of the new babies and their mummies. When Paro saw that his plan wasn't working, he decreed that all newborn Jewish baby boys would be thrown into the Nile River. When Miriam's father, Amram, heard about this decree, he decided it would be a good idea not to have any more babies. When Miriam heard this, she knew that this was a mistake. "Father, this idea is worse than Paro's. Paro said no more baby boys, but this idea means no more baby girls or boys." When Amram heard Miriam's words, he knew she was right. And because of her wise words, the Jewish people continued having children. Miriam knew that there would be a day when the Jewish people would be free. She didn't give up hope and encouraged her friends to believe that too. One day, Mummy Yocheved gave birth to a little baby boy. As soon as he was born, the entire house was filled with light. It was hard for Yocheved to hide her baby from Paro and his men, who kept looking for newborn Jewish boys. In order to keep the baby from harm, Yocheved put her baby inside a basket and placed it on the Nile River by the reeds. Miriam, the big sister, stayed and watched her baby brother to make sure he would be safe. It was a hot day, and Princess Batya came to take a bath in the cool waters of the Nile River. Suddenly she heard a baby crying. She looked and saw a basket with a baby inside. Batya stretched her hand to draw the basket out from the water. She took the baby out of the basket and named him Moshe. She hugged the baby and rocked him, but the baby continued to cry. He was hungry and he wouldn't eat from any of the Egyptian nurses. Miriam was watching and came over to the princess. "I can find you a Jewish nurse to feed this baby." "That's a great idea," said Princess Batya. Miriam quickly ran to call her mother to come to the princess. "This is a very experienced nurse. She can feed this baby and take care of him." Yocheved took her baby from Princess Batya and held him close. Baby Moshe stopped crying. He was happy to be with his mummy and nursed happily until he was full. When Moshe got old enough, he was taken to the palace to live with Princess Batya. She raised him like he was her own son. Meanwhile, the Jewish people were still slaves to Paro and worked very hard. When Moshe went out and saw the Jewish people suffering, his heart was filled with pain. He would try and help a Jew if their load was too heavy. He would offer a bandage if they had a boo-boo. Moshe was so sad to see the Jewish people in pain. One day, Moshe saw an Egyptian hitting a Jewish slave. This made Moshe very angry. Moshe told the Egyptian to stop. When it was found out, Moshe had to leave Mitzrayim. Moshe traveled all the way to Midian, where he became a shepherd. A shepherd is someone who looks after sheep. Moshe was a kind and caring shepherd. He made sure the sheep were safe and had enough to eat and drink. One day, a little baby sheep started to wander away. Moshe followed the sheep to see where it would go. The sheep ran all the way to a river to drink. "You are so thirsty," said Moshe, and let the sheep drink as much as he needed. He began to carry the tired sheep back to the flock. But on the way, he stopped to notice something very interesting. Moshe saw a bush on fire, but it wasn't burning up. He came closer and was surprised when he heard Hashem speaking. Moshe, I have heard the cries of the Jewish people. I see they are in pain. It is time to take them out of Mitzrayim and bring them to a beautiful land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Now come to Paro and tell him that he must let my people go. Me? Asked Moshe. Yes, you, Moshe, said Hashem. I see how you love and care for the sheep in your flock. You will be an excellent leader. I choose you. But I can't speak well. When Moshe was a little boy, he burned his tongue and his speech wasn't clear. You can bring Aaron, your brother, with you to talk to Paro. But Paro won't listen to us, said Moshe. I will come with you, said Hashem. Do not be afraid. Moshe and Aaron stood before Paro and said, Hashem has sent me to you. He sees how badly you treat the Jewish people. Let my people go. Paro said, Oh no, I will not let them go. Moshe warned Paro, if you do not listen to Hashem, he will bring many reminders until you listen. First, the water in the Nile River turned to blood. It tasted and smelled disgusting. The Egyptians were very thirsty without any water to drink. The only way they could get water was if they bought it from the Jewish people. The Egyptians had to pay money to buy water, and the Jewish people made a lot of money that week. After 7 days, Moshe went back to Paro and said, Let my people go, so they may serve Hashem. Paro refused. So Hashem sent all the frogs from the Nile into the Egyptian houses, into their bedrooms, and into their beds. The frogs even went inside their ovens. It was very noisy with so many frogs croaking everywhere. Paro called Moshe and Aaron to the palace. Tell Hashem to remove these croaking frogs. I've had enough, and I will let your people go. Moshe davened that the frogs be gone, and the next day all the frogs died. As soon as Paro stopped hearing the croaking of frogs, he changed his mind. Hashem told Moshe, Tell Aaron to stretch out his staff and hit the dust of the earth, and it will become lice throughout the entire land of Mitzrayim. The Egyptian magicians tried to do the same thing, but they couldn't. They said, This is truly from Hashem. But Paro didn't care. He didn't let the Jewish people go. So Hashem sent more reminders. He sent wild animals, an illness for the animals in their barns, boils and blisters, hail, grasshoppers, and darkness. Each time Paro promised to send the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, and after Moshe would daven to take it away, Paro would change his mind. No, I will not let them go. It was almost time for the Jewish people to leave Mitzrayim. Hashem commanded the Jewish people to take a baby ram and tie it around their bed for a special korban present for Hashem. They had to keep it there for 4 days, from the 10th of Nisan until the 14th of Nisan. Then, on the 14th day of Nisan, they would shech the lamb in the afternoon. Then they would take the blood and wipe it on the doorpost. And then, in the night, they would roast it on a fire and eat it with matzah and maror. They had to eat it when they were dressed and packed, with shoes on and ready to go. It took some courage for the Jewish people to take a lamb and tie it around their bed, because the Egyptians believed that the ram was in charge of making their plants grow and creating people. Maybe the Egyptians would get insulted and angry if they saw that the Jews were using their idol for a present for Hashem. But the Jewish people listened to what Moshe said. They didn't mind what the Egyptians thought. They knew they only needed to serve Hashem. When Hashem saw this, he said, Now my children are ready to come out of Mitzrayim. Hashem told Moshe that he would bring one last reminder that would help Paro to let the Jewish people go. It would be in the middle of the night when Hashem would strike the firstborn of every Egyptian home. Since Paro was of firstborn, he was worried for his own life. He woke up in the middle of the night and ran around looking for Moshe and Aaron. "Please, go! Take your families and all your belongings and leave this land. You are no longer my slaves. You are free." Hashem was waiting for this night for hundreds of years since he told Avraham about the slavery in Mitzrayim. It was exactly 400 years after Yitzchak was born on the 15th of Nisan, right after midnight. Hashem didn't wait an extra minute. And the next day, when the sun was shining and the birds were singing, all the Jewish mummies, daddies, girls and boys all walked happily out of Mitzrayim. No dogs barked, and no Egyptian stopped them or said anything mean. They were a free nation. They were not slaves anymore. They didn't have to work for Paro ever again. They were now free to serve Hashem. They walked out with dough on their shoulders because it didn't have a chance to rise. Do you know what happened to their dough? Yep, it turned into matzah. That's why we eat matzah on Pesach, to remember what Hashem did for our ancestors, that he took us out of Mitzrayim, away from Paro and the mean Egyptians. But our story continues. Hashem did even more miracles for the Jewish people. Would you like to hear about it? When the Jewish people traveled from Goshen where they lived, there was a cloud to show them the way. And at night, there was a fire to light up the path. Hashem led the Jewish people through the desert until it stopped in front of a sea. When the cloud stopped, it meant the Jews should stop traveling and set up their tents. This is how Hashem showed us where to go in the desert. Hashem told Moshe, "Paro is going to think that the Jews are stuck and will come and chase them. He will forget all the miracles that I did." And that is what happened. Paro took 600 chariots and all the strongest officers and came towards where the Jews were camped. As they came closer, the Jews saw Paro and the Egyptians. They were very frightened. They didn't know how they would survive. They cried to Moshe, "Moshe, we are so scared. We don't know what to do." Do you think Hashem would take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim and leave them without protection? No, Hashem was taking care of the Jewish people this whole time. The cloud that was in front of the Jewish people moved behind to protect them from the arrows that the Egyptians were shooting. Hashem was keeping everyone safe. No one got hurt. Moshe said to the nation, "Don't be afraid. Stand still and watch the miracles that Hashem is going to do." Hashem said to Moshe, "Tell the Jews to continue traveling. They should continue walking into the sea because it will not be in the way." The Jews were not sure about walking into the sea, but a brave man named Nachshon didn't question the words of Moshe. He trusted in Hashem 100%. He took one step after another and walked right into the ocean. At the same time, Hashem said to Moshe, "Lift your stick and spread your hand over the sea, which will split, and the Jewish people will walk into the sea on dry land." The Jewish people passed through the sea, while Paro and the Egyptians drowned in the water. The Jewish people saw, with their own eyes, how Hashem protected them from their enemies. They felt Hashem's love and protection, and you know what they did? They started singing. Moshe sang with the men, and Miriam sang with the women. Miriam had a beautiful tambourine that she made while she was in Mitzrayim. She knew, since she was a little girl, that there would be a time that they would be free, that Hashem would take her out of Golus, out of Mitzrayim, and that she would need a tambourine to sing songs of thanks to Hashem for the miracles and love that Hashem showed to her and her nation. And that's it for today, friends. I hope you enjoyed the story. Did you know there's a felt set that goes along with this? You can use it to act out the story and tell it in your own special way. Go to myfeltstory.com to check it out. Sending you lots of love until next time.